Call meeting to order. Roll call, please.
Mayor Larkey.
Here.
Councilmember White.
Here.
Councilmember Thompson. Here. Councilmember Davidson.
Here.
Councilmember Pryan.
Here.
Councilmember Lawson. Here. Councilmember Richardson.
Here.
Councilmember McCallum.
Here.
Councilmember Johnson.
Here.
We have a quorum. New business. One motion approving resolution 2025-067.
A resolution granting legal authority for the Belton Parks and Recreation Board to make purchases, enter into contractual obligations on behalf of the city of Belton, and define the parks consultation process for the sale or disposition of land utilized as parks.
Present.
Second.
Motion and a second. You're up.
Mr. Mayor and Council and Park Board members, this is going to be very short. A couple of slides just to review. We went through a whole presentation a couple of meetings ago about this potential resolution that's before you. Essentially, it's designed to give the parks authority to act as they had been. All right, there we go. So draft resolution issues talk about the charter stating that the park board must follow, not emulate city policies and procedures regarding finance, procurement, and personnel. Current adopted purchasing policy does not grant authority for the park board to enter into contracts or approve purchases. As is, park director has some purchasing authority, as other department heads do. Draft resolution gives park board some contractual authority and the same purchasing authority as the council. And resolution also addresses the consultation process for parks if the disposition of land is being considered. These were all part of the conversation during our original joint meeting. And then, so tonight's discussion essentially is, do we want to adopt this resolution? Do we want to adopt it as is? Do we want to add anything to it? There's one slight change in this resolution that's being presented tonight from what was presented previously as a draft during our conversation at that previous council meeting. I believe that one change is a 30-day delay in the contract going into effect if council were to grant the Parks Board authority to enter into contracts because of the provision in 9.4 of the charter that says council has the authority to review any Park Board decisions should so many council members, certify that they wish to bring that decision up for discussion. That 30-day delay essentially is to allow to get past that process. One way around that process would be if Parks were to put that on an agenda for the City Council, the very next meeting after the Park Board meeting, and have Council approve it, then that would essentially waive that 30-day provision, and that contract would be ratified by the Council, so it would be ratified at that point. So that's essentially what it is. Contracts, we have should parks have any contractual authority, what stipulations are necessary, what stipulations are optional, and then purchasing authority, should Park Board have the same purchasing authority as council, should parks be treated the same as other departments, or those are the things that are up for discussion. And the resolution as is stated essentially would give parks the authority to act over $25,000 to review those, or to approve those, and also the contract thing with the 30-day provision. And then it, of course, outlines the process for disposition of property. I'd be glad to stand for any questions.
Go ahead.
In section 3 of the, I didn't do it, okay. In section 3, the first sentence says that in the process of the sale or disposition of property, either formally designated city parkland, but that, and then it just says that once an application. Mm-hmm. What does that mean, either formally designated? Because there doesn't seem to be anything else that goes along with either formally designated.
Right. If there's some other way that the council would like to change to put any other guidelines on that. At this point, there is no formal designation of parkland, but the idea would be after this to address that. We're working on some survey work on some property. Right now, High Blue is connected to, on the same plat with the police department and that fire station in that same area. So we're trying to get the survey work done on that so we could potentially separate that out. And once we have legal descriptions on all of the parks, we would bring forth a resolution to formally identify land as parkland. And that way there's no debate and no misunderstanding.
I would think that the word either,
Or we could
Needs
change
to
the
be
either.
removed
Yeah, we can
from
remove
that
either.
section.
Yeah,
because I think it's more confusing than it is clarifying.
sure.
I also do not believe that a motion would be necessary for that, just seeing I believe that could be considered a scrivener's error.
Fair enough.
Go ahead.
I'm just going to repeat what I've said before, which is that I have no problem with this. I'm comfortable with this, especially with the change of the 30 days. I think that gets to the stipulation that I had mentioned before. I think I'm comfortable with it, but part of the biggest, maybe the biggest reason I'm comfortable with it is I believe that Parks would be comfortable with it. So I guess I would want to make sure that Parks is comfortable with it before I'm able to comfortably vote.
I'll just ask functionally, how do you think that would work, Brian? Or anybody on the park board? Do you want to kind of weigh in on the provision of the 30-day delay in contracts going into effect being waived if Parks sends it to the city council for our very next meeting, correct? Okay.
Perhaps some further explanation as to what that means, why, what's the purpose of that? And I may have missed that. Because the charter already allows the council, what I believe takes 3 council members to, I don't know what's the word, Patrick? Challenge a decision
Review.
that we make other than personnel.
Review. It just says review. It doesn't mandate a overturn. It's just the 3 city council members upon a written certification can review any decision of the park board. And so given that if contracts were executed, the day of execution is typically the effective date, right? And so then that would act as like an implicit kind of waiver. And given Councilmember Johnson brought it up at the couple council meetings ago about the 30-day provision, I put it in there just mainly so that you guys could discuss it and figure out what you want to do with it, because it wasn't fully discussed by the council at the last meeting.
Go ahead, Brett.
Go ahead.
I got you guys.
Well, I wanted to talk about what we're talking about right here. First of all, I would say anything in the park board that's not in the budgeted item. I mean, first of all, you guys go through the budget of the park board. So if there's any items in the park board that we're gonna do, you guys are gonna know those long in advance before that 30 days. The 30-day provision, if something new comes up that's not a budgeted item, I could see us adding a provision to give you 30 days to review something that's not been a budgeted item, minus anything that is an emergency order. As you guys all know, you guys do a lot of emergency orders in this business, and I think we got to have some type of flexibility to be able to do that emergency order if something breaks or gets damaged that we have to do an immediate repair. But I think if it's in a budget, and you guys see the budget every January, February, and we're not doing that project until June or July, I mean, you have more than 30 days already. I would tell you that provision should be, if it's not a budgeted item or not in the budget, then we should have a 30-day provision.
Patty.
So I have, first of all, the section of the charter, the 9.4, review of board of decisions. It says, upon the written certification of 3 council members, the city council may review any action or decision of the park board and except a personnel matter. The certification shall state with particularity the action or decision to be reviewed and shall establish a hearing date that is not less than 30 days from the delivery of the certification to the board. The city council shall hear testimony and rule on the appeal, and it will require 2/3 affirmative vote of the entire council to set aside or reverse or modify a park board decision. I'd also like to state that the state statute that was set out that allowed the formation of park board gives the park board exclusive control of the expenditures of any and all money collected to the credit of the park fund and the supervision, improvement, care, and custody of the park. They shall adopt bylaws, rules, and regulations for their guidance and for the government of the parks. The charter pretty much states the exact same thing that the state statute states, that the park board shall establish for its governance of the parks and recreation activities, and in so doing, the board shall follow the city policies and procedures. However, all decision-making authority remains with the board. It says that they shall adopt their bylaws, rules, and regulations. The code of ordinance pretty much states the exact same thing that I just stated, all of them pointing to the bylaws of the park board, which does allow the park board to award contracts. So I'm a little confused why this is coming before the city council when the park board has been following all the procedures that have been set in place.
As of 2008 and then subsequently in 2018 with the revisions to the charter, the park board no longer operated under Chapter 90, at least that's the interpretation that's been given to this charter provision in other similarly situated cities. Under that provision, the other cities have taken the interpretation that either there needs to be a direct grant of authority to contract, either in the purchasing policy or in some other separate document to authorize that sort of approval. Again, I'd note that the reason that the 30-day thing is just in there is because it was discussed by council, but no real decision or direction was given to city staff. And given that there is, again, the direct charter authority for the city council to review any, the use of the word any is important under Missouri case law, means it admits no apparent exceptions besides personnel, because that's an apparent exception is provided. I just wanted to make sure that it was in here so that in a year or 6 months or whenever, if a council member asks, hey, this says any, but now all of a sudden I can't review any contractual agreements entered into by the park board because they're already effective and we couldn't terminate, that'd be breach of contract. I wanted to make sure I said you guys specifically waived that authority when you adopted this resolution, or you didn't waive that authority when you adopted this resolution.
Can I ask a question?
Go ahead.
Go ahead with Chris. I'm still contemplating how I want to say it.
So in this resolution, you're saying that they're still going to have to come to city council for anything over 25,000?
Now, the way that this is set up is that the 25,000, that they would be able to have that authority if this
To do it.
resolution passes.
If this passes, yeah. Because I mean, even reading in the charter, I love to refer to the charter quite a bit. Section 9.2, powers and duties. The board shall have control of the expenditures of all monies collected for and deposited to the credit of the Parks and Recreation Fund, which is basically still on the front page of the city's website, where it says this board is the only city board that has administrative responsibility and exclusive control over expenditures of money for parks and recreation purposes.
Where does it say that in the charter?
Well, this says it
Exclusive?
on the city's website, the very first page, under Park Board. Literally says the location of the meetings are the third Monday of each month, and it says responsibilities. That's, I mean, it's the first page, and then it lists
Looks
all
like
the
that's in
members.
contrast to what the charter says, which was voted on by the residents, and so that
But
takes
that, doesn't
authority.
that go back to the board shall have control of the expenditures of all monies collected for and deposited to the credit of the Parks and Recreation Fund? And that is in the charter,
Yeah, the.
if we're
part-
gonna
the-
use that.
At most, again, the case law, we have to try and look at Chapter 90 provisions because that's the closest we can approximate. But under the existing case law in Missouri, the Park and Recreation Fund is strictly and solely the property tax revenues. So at the absolute most, that's the furthest it extends. Your Parks and Recreation sales tax under state law has to be deposited into its own separate fund, separate and apart from the Parks and Recreation Fund under 644.033.1. And then I'd also note that it seems like the city website maybe hasn't been updated because when you all framed your charter, you explicitly did not include the word exclusive. That was basically the one word that was deleted out of all the charter provisions related to the park board. As I've told the council before in these meetings, when you have something that's similar to something else, and then one word is the only word missing, it means something, or else that word would have been included.
So going on that one word, I know that you've stated this before, Joe, that the city manager shall not direct or supervise the parks or recreation director or the Parks and Recreation Department. And I know you've said this multiple times, and I did some research on this and went back to the 18 charter review. The reason that was taken out, and we did have to get the minutes on this, I believe we were the only one person asked for these, am I right?
It's on the website.
Is it on the
It's
website?
public
Okay.
information.
But the reason the city manager shall not direct or supervise was back in 18, Alexa, our city manager at the time, wanted to go to the park board meetings and have some say in what was going on. And if she was directing or supervising, she couldn't be there. Or she could only be, she had to be on the agenda to speak, which is the first 5 minutes. And this is in the minutes and from 18 charter review. So by her taking that out, she could go to a meeting, which the city manager is a non-voting park board liaison, I believe, right? According to the minutes in the 2018 charter review, that by taking those words out, the only reason they took those words out was so the city manager could go to the park board meetings and be able to have some say without directing or supervising. It didn't say she could control it, but she could at least speak and talk about it. So, I mean, there's a lot of things that if you go back and look at where the charter review was done, you can find out a lot of this information of why they did what they did.
I'm not sure what the city manager provisions you're discussing have to do with the resolution that's being
Well,
proposed. I'm not
It doesn't, but all leads back
seeking
to the same thing,
anything as
but,
far as,
yeah. I know you've brought that up in 2 meetings ago. But I just wanted to throw that out there too, that, you know, the reason they do things, if we actually look back at the charter review and seen why they did what they did, there's a lot of explanation, so.
Did you also notice that in the discussions in the minutes from the charter review process in 2018, that some of the words were excluded for this express purpose of forcing the park board and the city council to work together more? And that was the rationale behind changing some of the wording in the charter.
But they did not take out the wording where it says the board shall have control of the expenditures of all monies collected and deposited to the credit of the Parks and Recreation Fund.
But they did change the wording in regards to the guidelines that the city council can set via the policies, purchasing and procurement and personnel.
With what, with the personnel?
That's just one of the 3 that's on there.
I just wanted to point out that stuff, so.
Go ahead, finish.
No, that's all I wanted to point out was, I mean, it's literally on the city's website under the park board responsibilities, you know? The board is the only city board that has administrative responsibility and exclusive control over expenditures of money for parks and recreation
The
purposes.
voters don't vote on what goes on the website, but they do vote
I
on
know,
what's in the
but
charter.
I'm still going back to the 9.2 powers and duties, where it says they control all the monies, so.
Also, we do need to change that because the park board's not the only administrative board of the city. The planning commission is an administrative board. The BZA is a administrative / quasi judicial board.
They don't control money, though.
Actually, under state law, the planning commission has more authority than the park board. They can contract. They're specifically authorized to. It's just we never provide a budget to the planning commission because everything just runs through the community development department.
But do they have
So
their
that,
own
so
bylaws?
This is wrong.
They do, yeah.
So the charter is wrong in this?
I mean,
In
wrong.
the 9.2?
No, the website's wrong.
No, the website's
On the
wrong.
website, with the only.
Saying that it's
administrative
administrative and exclusive.
But
I
it
can-
does say in the ordinance that was passed and approved by the voters, Chris, you're correct, the park board shall have control of the expenditures of all monies collected for and deposited to the credit of Parks and Recreation Board. I have a copy of the ordinance right here.
And the Park and Recreation Fund under Missouri law is the fund where the property tax revenues go.
Yep.
not
That's only
the
a
sales
portion.
tax revenues.
Yeah, that's only a portion of the revenues that the park board utilizes.
So I'm trying to clarify and wrap my head around because, so the 30 days, define that 30 days for me because I want to make sure that when I'm speaking, I'm being accurate.
The way the charter works is that the 3 city council members, not the city council, just 3 city council members can file a written certification within 30 days of any action taken by the park board, not by the park director. That is actually pretty key. So when we're talking about purchasing, Brian, purchasing authority is up to 15,000, correct? So Brian could approve purchases of the park board for 15,000, and those cannot be, under 15 or under, cannot be reviewed by the city council. But the way the charter works is it's a written certification by 3 council members within 30 days triggers a review. Once that review is a hearing, that has to be within 30 days of the written certification. And then you guys would hear testimony and witnesses, it seems to be, and then a 2/3 majority, so 6, could overturn, set aside, or modify any decision of the park board. And again, I asked some of our peer cities that have similar provisions what this looks like, because I don't think you guys have ever done it. They also have never done it. At one time got brought up in another city, and then it was dropped.
But you said something, once the contract's signed, it's no longer available.
So that's, again, I put this in mainly so that we could have this discussion because Councilmember Johnson did bring it up, and you guys all kind of talked about it, but we didn't get any solid direction, because it says any decision. So then any decision could mean any agreement, but then if an agreement is executed that night, if, the park board grants Brian the authority to execute it, right? Then there is an agreement. Done.
So then there's no coming back.
And so then it would be extremely difficult, I could make some legal arguments to make it so that we could go back and look at it, but the cleaner, safer way, based again on the discussion, because also Councilmember McCollum, you asked me a couple times last time, is this legally enough to get us there and be right? So I belt and suspended it to make sure that there was no potential issues either way. But again, you guys can discuss this. Other cities have, taken specific action to kind of waive it implicitly. I think that's kind of tough because again, the provision isn't the city council, it's 3 city council members. So it's not binding the city council, it'd be binding individual members to not file a written certification, which is, legally, that's a very odd distinction.
Okay. Okay. A couple of things. First of all, when the budget comes to us, from the park board, and it's coming for just to let us know, because we don't approve their budget. We do? I know we vote on it, but I thought you guys approved it, and it was kind of like, I don't understand the day stuff that you guys have to deal with. I don't understand what you need, other than when you tell me you need an air conditioner, or you need this, or you need that. I can understand that. But when it comes to how you operate your parks, how you operate everything stuff, I have to trust that our budget is what you guys need. I'm not going to try to come and say, oh, well, I don't think you need that. I don't think you need this. Just like the other departments, when they come up with their budget and they say this, I might ask, why do you need a new truck? Or why you need this or that. But that's not the same thing as if they believe they need it, and then they have to need it. So I'm not trying to decide what your budget is. I want to take what you say your budget is and go with it. My thing, and it was at that meeting, was I want to know when you're spending it. Because, and not to approve you're spending it, but just when you're spending it. And you talked to me about emailing me. I felt about that. I don't know how exactly I feel about that. But if I had my druthers, I would like it to be like some of the other departments do. You take your bids out, You get your bid back, you come to the council, you say, hey, we've done the bids, we went through this, we chose this people for this, we're going to be signing the contract in 2 weeks. Goodbye.
But we have an administrative board to do that, so it doesn't have to come before council. That's the difference.
Well,
Brett.
it does if you follow by the rules of this, that our attorney.
I'd also note there, you pointed out another oddity about the way your guys' charter is written, but the budget is not approved by the city council.
I thought.
The city council receives it, and the city council can review it and provide comments, but those comments are not binding.
So I
They're
was
only
correct.
recommendations, which then, with the 30-day review thing of any decision besides personnel, I don't know how to square those two things, given that one says you can review, modify, and set aside any decision, and then another one says that you can only comment on a budget. But so then they could approve a budget without your recommendations, and then I guess you guys could do a written certification and then overturn that or modify, do whatever, set aside, do whatever with that budget. But again, those are some of the oddities that we're trying to deal with. When this section was written, it was modeled off of another one. There was a couple extra things put in there in your guys' version. Then since then, there were some pretty significant changes made in like 18, the annual report stuff being gone, those kind of sections modified, that recommendation language, that kind of brought a lot of things out of skew with just the entire flow of the charter, I would honestly say. Because again, like Councilmember Richardson pointed out, according to the Charter Review Commission, the reason why they removed the city manager shall not supervise stuff was to make it so that Alexa could come to meetings, or the city manager, whomever it would be, could come to meetings.
So,
But I want to make sure that I am correct, that I don't, as a city council member, approve. I can make comments and recommendations.
You have to, the one part of the budget that you do approve, and we have to state that you're approving it, is the sales tax funds.
Okay, so partial.
so one thing, Brett, that you mentioned
Who's
was that, it's Dave, it's here.
Oh,
over
I'm
here.
sorry, Dave, couldn't see you.
I'm sorry.
Go ahead. No, you're fine. Go ahead.
You talked about wanting to know ahead of time when it's going to be approved. And one of the things we do is every park board meeting that we have, we put it in that packet that's sent to everybody. So it's in that packet for our meeting, and we hold a meeting once a month. So if there's a way to make that even smoother, so to speak, I don't, if it's 2 weeks out or something, that the agenda goes out or something like that, I don't know if that's possible. But at least in that agenda is the things that we're approving, approving that night. So that's one way that we let you guys know when we're approving that or looking at that. And I had one more question, and I don't know who can answer that. So if we have the 30-day provision, it's been in our budget, you guys have seen it, whether it's considered approved or not, the sales tax fund is approved. But let's say that 30-day provision's in place, and 3 city council decide we want to review it, and then it's voted on and it's declined. Basically, I'm just going to use one example, like the playground. You guys say no to doing that. I doubt that would happen. But my question is, what happens if you guys say no to that? And who's the injured party in that?
I think it would then I would hope that if the council ever did do the written certification process and set aside or vacate it or otherwise, set aside, reverse, or modify, those are the terms used by the charter. I would hope that would come with some direction from the city council as to why it was being done. The written certification is required to state with, what's the exact particularity, the actions or decisions to be reviewed. It doesn't say like the reasons why, but I would hope that if 3 council members ever do make that decision, if we ever do end up in that process, please tell us why it's happening, so that then either the park board or city staff, Brian, they'd have direction on why.
But there's no requirement that they do that, correct?
What, no requirement that they?
Say why, they can say.
No, there isn't. I'm just really, again, it's one of those things with the way that the charter flows and is written, I would really,
I'll just add, I would
Hold
hope
on,
there would
hold
be
on, hold on,
enough
hold
between
on.
us.
Are you talking about this? or-
Yes.
Okay, go ahead.
I hope there would be enough communication between the park board and council where we would know what is going on if something like that were to ever happen. I would,
And again, I agree with you, Alex. We're talking about this, and I just want to make sure that if this possibly does happen, and I just can't imagine it happening, but, if it does happen, where do we go from there? Because the last question I had was, who's the injured party? If we're replacing a playground that's 30 years old, probably the injured party is probably the taxpayers. And that's something that I think we just need to keep in mind, who really, if we do agree on this and there's, I call it an injured party, who it is, it's really, it's really the taxpayers, because they're the ones that pay for everything to get done, and they're the ones, that want upgrades and see more in parks. And that's my whole point there.
Terry, go ahead.
Excuse me. So Patrick, I'd like to know what changed. When we had our last joint meeting, what was going to happen was toward the end of the meeting, you said,
Hold on a minute, Terry. And Andrew, can you turn that up? Go ahead, Terry.
can you hear me now?
Yeah, that's better.
Okay. I'm just wondering what changed from the last joint meeting we had. Toward the end of that meeting, Patrick said, we talked about the fact that he allowed us to take the procurement policy and change out city council for park board, change out city manager for the park director. And he said, if that's the way we're conducting business, like we have, I know, for the last 10 years, why don't we just do that and move on? Why all the changes now? I know that Patrick's even said himself that it's almost like they copy and pasted our charter from Lee Summit. Well, Lee Summit's not making these changes. Why are we making the changes?
Lee Summit's purchasing policy has an explicit call out that the park board can purchase at the same authority as the city council, and that the parks director, or parks administrator, I forget what exactly they call them, has the authority to purchase at the city manager's level. Prior to this, honestly, when I was asked the question, it was, what have you guys been doing for the past 10 years? Well, obviously somebody must have done a full deep dive into the charter and come up with the opinion that you could do that. So, okay, keep doing it until somebody asked me the question, and then I had to dig into it. And just like, Councilmember McCollum and Councilmember Johnson brought up good points in the last meeting, that caused even more changes, because it was like, well, Councilmember McCollum's right. We should probably have the contract, a form of it, attached to this resolution like we do with all other contracts that we approve. Councilmember Johnson bringing up that, hey, this 30-day review provision says any decision besides personnel. What does that mean for contracts? Oh, that's right. That's a good point. That needs to be discussed and dealt with and figured out. That's what changed.
Go ahead.
Well, clearly,
We'll let him finish.
I'm sorry.
Go ahead, Terry. Go ahead.
But clearly it states in the charter that, especially when you start talking about procurement, finances, it says, however, all decisions-making authority shall remain with the board. And that's in 9.2A of the city charter.
And then the
So-
city council can overturn any decision is another provision in the charter.
Okay.
So it's just like with the budget. We have one provision that says all decision-making authority shall remain with the board, and then we have another provision that says that the city council can set aside or modify or reverse any decision.
I don't see the issue here. We've been rolling for 10 years. No issues. I don't think anyone on this board, anyone on the council can argue that there's been issues with our park board as far as the last 10 years and any finances.
And isn't it also in the charter that the park board has to follow the city purchasing policy, and we have to comply with the state statute, and I'm going to get this citation wrong because I don't have it in front of me,
43207.
432, oh, sorry, requires the city council to give authority to anyone to act as an agent to sign contracts. that to me means that if we haven't given you the authority, and by we, I mean the city council, then your contracts are not valid, and we need to correct that. That's why we're here today, in my opinion.
Just real quick, I want to make sure I understand.
Let Tara respond to that.
Oh, sorry.
Go ahead, Tara.
So, right after that, it says in the charter, that's where the one I just mentioned, when it says, however, all decision-making shall remain with the board. It states it in the charter. Now, if you guys don't like the charter, you're gonna have a review here in a couple of years. Change it then, if the citizens want to. But the citizens have spoke up multiple times. They want it separated, and they give the parks authority to do this. We know that we cannot put the city in debt. That's a given, we know that. But if we budget projects, we shouldn't have to wait for a first reading, second reading from the city to move on with those contracts, according to the current charter we're living under. That's my point.
Can I respond?
Hold your thought. Go ahead.
So this might be to Terry, this might be to our attorney, I'm not sure at this point, but I just want to clarify here that this is the reason that this resolution is doing what Terry is describing. Is that correct?
Yes, and it's bringing the park board and the city into full and unarguable compliance with section 432.070. Previous to this,
So-
if somebody attempted to challenge a contract, I could have pieced together some arguments and we could have gone down to Cass County and maybe we win. Under the way that this is written, just like, again, you asked at the last meeting, this makes it so that there's no argument. No person contracting with the park board and just the park board could back out and say, oh yeah, that wasn't a valid contract.
So Terry, I just want to make sure do you disagree that the resolution's doing that?
I'm not a lawyer. I wish I had a lawyer on hand that I could have read it. I really do. I don't know every part of it. I'm out of town, unfortunately, and I haven't had time to look it all over. I rely on Brian there. If Brian believes that this is doing what we are currently working under, then I'm okay with it. But if we budget something and we have the money to pay for it, we shouldn't have to go to city council as long as it's not putting the city council in debt.
I think,
For the
Terry,
city.
I'm sorry, Norm, Mayor Larkey,
Go
sorry.
ahead. No, you're fine. Go ahead.
I think, from what I'm understanding, I believe I'm agreeing with what Alex is saying. I think that's what we're trying to do here. The only addition to this, if I'm correct, is the 30-day provision. That's the one thing
Yeah,
that
and
we're
again,
adding? We're going to remain the same, but we're adding the 30-day provision.
We are specifically clarifying to all parties contracting with the park board that provision exists and that they need to be aware of that provision existing. That's essentially what it's doing. If you look at the form contract that's included as Exhibit A, I think it's like the third line, I put it in there. Just because I don't want any sort of situation, again, where in 2 years, a council member asks me, hey, there's this provision in the charter that says we can review any decision, but now I can't review any of the contractual agreements that are being expended. Patrick, why didn't you catch that on this one? Last time I didn't do a full deep dive of your charter when I got asked this question. This time I did. And unfortunately, there's a lot of moving pieces in there, and that's one of them, is the 30-day certification.
So, Terry, it's what I'm understanding, and I could be wrong, that's why I'm saying this, is that currently the charter, you are correct, you control, that's what I said earlier, you do your budget, I don't approve it, I just make recommendations or statements. And I don't control who you get for bids, I don't control any of that stuff. But the charter says that you don't have the authority, and this is trying to give you the authority to do that, to operate that way, just the way you are. My problem, which is what I've always been, was I was hired by the citizens to monitor. And so I just want the ability to monitor. that's it. Once, because if I have to do something, I have to get 3 people. But my job is to monitor the financial stuff and community safety. And I'm just trying to figure out a way to do that while letting you guys do what you do. And if I can't have monitoring, because I was hired to do that, if I'm not allowed to monitor because you want to operate your way, then I cannot support this, and I will vote no on this budget, and I will push hard for monitoring.
I would note that the charter does not explicitly grant the park board the authority to contract, either does any of the portions in the Code of Ordinances. And 432070 requires that any authorization to enter into a written contract be explicit. That was kind of one of the first things, again, I've already said this, but another one of my cities got into a actual litigation with their park board, kind of. And that was one of the things. And so during the research, during the significant briefing period, became pretty clear that under 432070, without that sort of explicit grant, either in the charter or the Code of Ordinances or state law, which doesn't contain it either, the city council or the governing body needs to take action to specifically authorize it. Yeah.
I had a comment when I read the agenda about the statement with the previous administrations. So bear with me, I had to write it. I feel that there have been several circumstances during my time here where the previous administrations was referenced as a reason why something wasn't currently being done correctly. In tonight's agenda, yet again, the previous administration is being mentioned as a reason why these processes need to be reformed. The previous administration has been gone for over 3 years. Joe, why wasn't one of your first items of business was to review our charter and processes? I feel that this is now only coming up after a very public dust storm up over parks lands. Only adds to the speculation that this is, well, retaliatory. At some point, blaming the previous administration ceases to be a realistic excuse. In my opinion, we're about 2 years outside that window. Thank you.
Can I address that, Mr. Mayor?
Go ahead.
Yeah, I did do a full review of the charter when I was hired, and one of the questions I did ask, and the mayor would attest this, the city attorney would attest this, was why are there these conflicts here in the charter and the way that we operate? And the explanation, which is the same explanation that was given to the parks previously, was that's the way we've always done it. And they've always felt like it's good enough legally, and so we've never changed it. What's changed? Well, there was a recent trying of a case by our city attorney. Some of these questions came up, and some different opinions have been found based on legal precedents. We have a job to do, and we do our best until we know better, and then we have to do better. And so, yeah, when you start to find that certain things mean different than what they were thought to mean before, we have a duty to uphold the charter. We all took that oath. That's the biggest reason we're here.
I think we all have an opportunity here, and this is what I took away from the first time we met, is that we needed to codify how parks functions, not necessarily modify. And I think there are shades of modification that weren't clear at the last meeting. And having this discussion and hearing how Lee Summit has delegated authority to their parks director and their parks board, to me, that would be codifying the relationship, allowing them to proceed with contracts and spending limits. We've talked about how Parks is a well-functioning department of the city. We've ranked them internally amongst other departments and said, yeah, we like where this is going. So I'm not sure why we want to try to reinterpret things. As far as I know, there's only 2 people in the room with a law degree, Patty and Patrick, correct? Okay. All right. Honorary from Mayor's you. So my hope is that we can continue to allow parks to function in this healthy way that they've been functioning, and then in 2028, when the next charter review comes around, if there are modifications that need to be made, well, if the 9 of us are still sitting up here, we will be in a position to put people on the charter review and make the changes then. But to do it now and to do it under the circumstances with the Westover land deal that blew up, and it just feels like we're getting the waters very muddied when we have an opportunity to just codify, move forward, allow parks to keep functioning as it has been, and then in 2028, we can look at the charter again, and everybody will have fresh perspective on things we can improve on.
Okay, so the
No, wait,
30-day.
no, wait a minute. I was out, Shannon, go ahead. I was out of order.
So as a new person coming in, I just want to mention kind of what I think I'm hearing, and like in a very broad, big picture way. It sounds like we have multiple documents that have some conflicting information in them, in the charter, et cetera, right? And so tonight, this resolution is an attempt to try to resolve those conflicting things that are in our current guiding documents. But I also hear in this new resolution some other new potentially conflicting things. So, for example, the city attorney using the word like, I hope it comes with some guidance. So we have listed, now we have this process, but it's going to be just as vague and potentially create another, issue going forward. So I'm unclear about how we're fixing a solution, and it sounds like maybe we're creating another potential area of vagueness that will have to come back to the table again at some point in the future. I'm also kind of curious about this idea of monitoring that Councilman White brought up. I heard you say that your issue is like when the money is being spent. And then I also heard Dave say, well, that's included in the minutes that we send out when we're spending it. So I'm a little confused about where the breakdown is in your ability to monitor when it's being provided currently, unless that's not what you're looking for. And then the other final thing I wanted to mention is I'm just curious about how much time is put into when the park board presents the budget for that approval process. Because again, it seems like that's a prominent time for people to be talking about this is a concern or not a concern. And in my conversation with Brian, this idea of the emergency orders I've heard come up, there are things, that the parks have to resolve quickly. So I think the whole 30-day delay versus the, first reading, second reading, the approval, all of that, I think there's a big reason that the parks has functioned in the way they have so far in being able to have that expenditure capacity and those decision-making options. And the 3 council member review, I can appreciate that it's not one person that makes changes or doesn't. I'm curious about how would those 3 council members, are they going to be watching the Parks Board minutes to say, oh, I saw in the minutes, so I didn't like this? The council members aren't typically at the Park Board meetings, or at least not very many were here when we had our meeting last week. So I'm wondering, where are those 3 people going to come from that have concerns at any monthly point anyway? It seems kind of like another vague, maybe moot point that I understand the protection factor of it not just being one person to raise a question, but I also think that's an interesting dynamic that we haven't really thought through what that's going to look like. So I guess I'm just making some points of caution.
Councilmember Lawson, other than the 30 days, is there something else you feel is being modified? Because I thought this was codifying.
That's a fairly significant modification that would slow down Parks process, so I'm.
Well,
I should note, it's not new. The city council at any point since 2008 could have reviewed any contract entered into by the park board.
Yeah.
At any point. What we're doing here is just making sure that contractors and everybody is aware that exists, so there's not a potential legal issue with the contract when it is approved by the park board.
So say you're a vendor and you get a contract back from Belton Parks and it says, yeah, we're good to go pending 30 days review window for the city council. They're not going to take that as effective immediately.
And then the other option is for the vendor to find out that, oh, if I did something on day 2 after the contract was approved and the park board has submitted it to finance to pay the check, and then 3 council members put in a certification saying, actually, we don't approve of that contract, then the vendor finds out that the very basis for their payment is now in question.
So let me say this, the parks budget is due how long before the city council? Is it 90 days or did we cut it to 90? Okay, so we have a 90-day window for parks to submit their budget and we can send it back with comments. I anticipate that if the council sent, I'll say I hope, we'll stick with the word hope here. I hope if the council sent back comments, the parks board would take that under advisement and be willing to modify. Then in that case, the 30-day delay in contract going into effect could be minimized further to only apply to any non-budgeted over $25,000 but non-emergency items.
The city council could put that and amend the resolution for it to say that.
Could you restate that?
Yes, that the 30-day delay in the contract, allowing us to look at it, would only apply to non-budgeted items that are over their spending limit of $25,000 and are not emergency.
So
That clarifies the gap here.
So stated differently, would you be making a motion to amend Resolution 2025-067 by adding a new Section 6 that states the city council hereby waives any review period pursuant to Section 9.4 of the Home Rule Charter of the City of Belton regarding contracts and purchases for budgeted items under $25,000.
Non-budgeted items over $25,000. Waiving it, sorry, that reverse.
Yep.
Okay, I think that sounds good, but I would like to hear from the Parks Board and the Parks Director how that lands.
Still a little confused by what that said.
So essentially, and Councilmember Lawson can correct me if I'm wrong, what Councilmember Lawson is looking to do is for the park board, through this resolution, to have the authority to contract and purchase anything below $25,000 that is budgeted.
And above.
Yes.
And above. Any budgeted, they can make any budgeted purchase or enter into any contract in substantially the form as Exhibit A for budgeted items. And then you guys,
Emergency.
Okay. Can I do it in a timeline form?
Yes.
Okay. We get the parks budget and we have 90 days to look it over. If at any point there we say, hey, guys, we got a question, we work it out then. After their budget is approved, anything that comes up as a contract that is not budgeted, is over $25,000 and is not an emergency, right? They decide, hey, we're gonna pop a park in next to Powell Park. We got a little space here. Then it would come to the council, say, hey, this isn't budgeted, it's over your spending authority, and it's not an emergency. We want to talk about it. That allows you the oversight that you desire, but also you have the 90-day window up front to look at the park's budget.
The other thing about contracts is that every I'm sorry.
No, go, you're fine.
The contracts being used in this have all gone, not the actual specific contract that's been signed, but any template contracts have all been approved by Patrick. Is that right? You and Brian went through all those contracts?
yeah, I think the most frequent one, your kind of vendor one, is a form contract. The form that's attached to this is that form, just with some updated things. For example, since that was approved, there was the Anti-Israel Discrimination Act passed by the Missouri legislature. And then there's a couple more things in there that have to be in there, but can be removed if certain dollar figures are wrong. So what's in the contract what's in the resolution is the same contract you guys have been utilizing, just with a couple minor modifications.
Well, I just want
Hold
to
your
hit
thought,
on,
hold your thought.
And I just want to say that it's my understanding that only the city can be sued if there's a problem with any of these contracts, and only the city can bring suit on any of these contracts. Am I correct? Because we are the only subdivision of the state that can do that, correct?
Yes, that is correct.
Well, I would just point out that the Parks is the city, just saying.
Yeah, and the contracts they use are from the city attorney.
Correct.
Right, but that's why I'm talking about these contracts is that we're ultimately the ones who are responsible. I understand that they're a department of the city, but we are the ones that are ultimately responsible for whatever happens, and we are the entity that bears the brunt of whatever happens. We're the ones who are elected by the people of this city to do the things that we are supposed to do as a city council, and part of that is to be responsible for what happens within the city. That's all I'm saying.
So
That
let me
could happen
clarify.
with anybody. That could happen anywhere in the city.
Yeah, that could be a public works contract, that, you know what I mean?
No, I
Like, is
agree.
the
I agree
concern
with
the liability, or is the concern the financial? Because I'm hearing both.
It's
And
both.
and perhaps it's both.
It's both.
Okay, so then our concern is with our city attorney and the contracts he's providing to our Parks Department.
Sorry, I'm trying to write down your proposed motion so that I can get it right. But the contracts that they've been entering into, just the base form was legally protective enough. I think kind of what the point of this is to make sure that this contract is the sole one utilized. So you see this with a lot of, I mean, to be honest, cities, like, you guys can look at all the parks or all the public works contracts that you get. They're all the exact same form, no matter what's going on, just with, like, the Section A, Exhibit A is changed. That's what the vendor provides. So what you're doing here is making sure there's no use of kind of vendor-specific contracts that might have materially different terms than what we require, for example, like jurisdiction, governing law, or just some indemnification, are just some things that are always in a vendor contract. And Brian usually does pull all those out, but it's just to make sure that those requirements that we need to comply with Missouri law are always in the contract without ever having to think about it. And to provide them the explicit authority to contract, because again, 432070 requires that kind of explicit step to be taken. And so if you look at any contract you guys approve, it's attached, you approve it in substantially the form, so that again, there's no argument that the contract that was before you guys wasn't the one that was ultimately entered.
And just because something is gone through all the protections that you can possibly build into it, doesn't mean that there isn't going to be litigation. You and I both know that.
Unfortunately, that is very true.
Well, I guess I was just going to respond back to Allison. As a park board member, I think her, maybe that motion that's getting ready to be announced by Patrick is a good one, and that's what I was kind of talking about. I think anything that's budgeted, you guys see the budget, maybe you don't approve it, but you do see the budget. We do give you monthly updates on what's going on with the park board. So you do see what's going on at the park board if you're paying attention. I'll be honest, I sat in your chairs before, and to sit here and say I paid attention to all their park board meetings every month would be a lie, because I know I didn't, and I know you guys are probably doing the same thing. But I think that's why you guys appoint this 9-member board to oversee what the park's doing. And in my 25 years of being involved in the city politics, I've never known the park board to have issues with council. So I don't, no one's ever used that 3 city council members coming up and challenging what the park has done. So I think if you guys trust us to appoint us, I think that's where that trust comes in. As a former elected official, I mean, we have to trust the people that we put in place to help run the city. And that's our job as a park board members, to run the parks.
Dave?
Hold on,
Oh, you told me.
go ahead.
So, on the park budget, we don't approve it. Is that correct? They bring it to us. They have to have it 90 days. We didn't have it 60 days this year because of something with the raises
Well,
with the
I mean,
employees.
I'm
Is
gonna,
that right?
I might disagree a little bit with Patrick, because you do approve it because it isn't part of the city budget.
I'm going
So
there.
as part of the city budget, you approve the budget. So is it not
oh,
part of the
I'm-
city budget, or is it
No, I'm
part of
going
the
there.
city budget?
So you're saying we don't approve their budget, but they had it here 60 days prior versus the 90 with, and it had something to do with the city's pay scale, or I believe is what it was. Yeah, so they came to us with a positive budget. But when we voted it in, wasn't it a negative budget? So whose fault was that? Because if we're not responsible, I thought it came out with a negative budget. Had something to do with the carryover, I believe, wasn't it? No? Brian, you want to?
I don't really know what happened. I think it had to do with an amendment process. But yes, the budget that was passed was not the budget that the park board approved.
And you guys didn't change it, is that correct?
Correct.
So who did change that? And why did it get voted in by city council with a negative budget? And is that our fault? So that puts all the blame on us, as far as I can tell.
Well, I think that's their argument, Chris, is that the blame is always going to be on us. It's always going to land on us. That is
But
Patty's
I've not heard
argument.
it, I haven't heard anything like that we've been in trouble over this.
Well, I think that
But we
budget,
didn't, but the parks didn't change it. It came here with a positive budget.
I think
So
if
why
the
did
park
it get
budget was
changed?
modified by city staff, I think that park budget should have came back to park
It should have come
board
back.
for approval.
If you modify it, why did it not come back? And why was it a negative budget when it finally got voted in? That's what I mean, am I wrong? But we don't approve it, so technically we're not in trouble.
I think we should stick to the resolution that's at hand and have the conversation.
Yeah, I'm getting ready to do that. Brett, go.
So, Dave, I admitted that I wasn't paying enough attention. I admitted that several months ago. And that is, it came to me, and it wasn't because of the Westover. And I said it here and said that I was negligent. I wasn't paying attention. Didn't I? You did. And that's changed me, because I am not going to do that anymore. Now, I'm not going to be 100% perfect, by God, and God knows that. But, and that's why I don't know about what level of monitoring, because she had mentioned that, what level of monitoring I'm wanting. I just want to make sure that I'm doing what the citizens asked me to do. I told you, I'm the one that said, I don't approve we approve the overall budget, but when you bring your section to me, I don't try to change your section, because I don't know what you guys need. I'm trusting that you guys do what you need. But yeah, we vote on the budget, but I don't change yours. I don't know what happened.
Well, somebody changed ours, but I mean,
I
going
don't
like.
know, but I firmly, like you, I
Brett,
didn't pay attention to it, and
I
I'm
just-
admitting that.
I just admitted to you and everybody in front of me that when I was sat in your seats, I didn't pay attention to the park board because we appointed people to run that. I didn't worry about them. Now, when we had issues and someone would reach out to me about what's going on with the park, I reach out to the park director and the park board president to figure out what's going on because of the citizen had an issue. So as a council member, I would make sure that I was doing my job for that citizen, but unless there was a glaring issue going on, I mean, the parks have always run pretty smoothly because I think over the years, we've always had very good board that have ran the parks, and I think we have a good board now, so.
Go ahead.
And this, Joe, this is a question for you, but I remember Casey bringing this up in our audit, that there were some red flags about these contracts being signed and us not knowing about them. Is that not what she said?
There have been questions brought up by the auditors on what authority is granted to enter into these contracts. When the audit occurs every year, they pick some things to look into. They don't review every single expenditure by any means, but they do pick and choose little things at random generally and try to hit different areas. And this year they picked up on a contract and said, well, okay, well, where's the granted authority to enter into this contract? And one didn't really exist. So, yes.
Can I ask something on that? It's Dave again. Sorry. Sorry, what? Oh, I'm sorry, Mayor Larkey.
Go ahead. Go ahead.
As far as the audits, I just want to understand something. I did hear that it did come up in a recent city audit, but I've never heard of it come up in any previous city audit before that, nor have I heard it come up in any of the state audits that have been done. So I heard you say random, but as much as I've been on here almost 9 years on the park board, and I know people on the city council, Dave Clark and things like that, and Mayor Larkin and people, and Alice, everybody. I have never heard this come up until this city audit, including state audit. So my whole point to that statement is, okay, here it's coming up now in this city audit, when it's never come up in a city audit previously. I don't believe. I'm assuming that, and I've never
I
heard
can
it
speak
come
for
up
the
in a
last
state
couple of
audit.
years is all I can speak to. It's a new auditing firm this is the second year that they're in it. That's all I can.
Has
I
there,
can't tell you what else is
did he
before.
put it in his report in the last couple of years?
Put it in whose report?
The audit report.
It wasn't in the last approved audit report. We expect there will be something in the upcoming one we're about to get a draft of.
Terry, go ahead.
Dave said exactly what I was going to talk about, the fact that we've never heard anything from the state audits or the other audits. So I won't speak on that again. However, once we're kind of done with this, we tend to be on the financial side of this resolution. I also have some issues with the real estate or the real property of this resolution as well. And I'll just wait until we get to that part of it.
Hold that thought.
Yep.
Go ahead.
With the exception of what Mr. Ward just said, I was going to say, I feel like we've come full circle. I'm at the same spot I was in the beginning, which is that I have no problem. In fact, I would support this resolution, again, assuming that the park board supports this resolution, without hearing from the park board that, I guess I would want to know that the park board supports it, and then I'm comfortable with moving forward with, even with a potential motion change on the 30 days, I can understand that makes perfect sense, as long as there was no other issue or spot that was potentially modified or felt to be modified or whatever. And I guess, Mr. Ward, if you have something else in there, but I just feel like we've gone full circle now at this point.
All right.
Regarding section 2, it appears that this is limiting my purchasing authority. I don't know who the question goes to. But
No, it
does that
doesn't.
change the way, because
No, it doesn't. That's why I refer to it as the Parks and Recreation Board. So Parks and Recreation, again, this is why another weird thing about the charter review is, like, Brian, as the Parks Director, his decisions cannot be reviewed by the city council. So that's, if you look at section 2, it does just say the Parks and Recreation Board. So under the currently adopted city purchasing policy, Brian, as a department director, has $15,000 purchasing authority. And then, honestly, Joe could approve $25,000 purchases for Parks and Recreation purposes that would not be subject to the city council's review either. So section 2 does not limit Brian or Joe's authority to approve purchases for parks purposes under $25,000 or $25,000 and under. I forget out of the purchasing policy.
Okay.
Go ahead, Terry.
So just to be clear again, I want clarification there, because I thought I heard you say Brian has up to 15,000 and Joe has up to 24,000. Is that what you said?
Yeah, I believe that's what the current purchasing policy limits are for department directors and the city manager.
Which, once again, I
You're
go
25.
back to the.
Okay, so department directors are 25. Joe's 25, department
I think
directors.
the issue at hand is in past, the park director was given the same level of purchasing authority as the city manager, and that's what they're asking for clarification on.
And so the current purchasing policy does not include the Parks Department. I don't know when that occurred or at what time frame. I know we did a big rewrite of the purchasing policy 5 or 6 years ago now. That was kind of quickly put together.
Well, and more recently than that, too.
Well, there was another one more recently than that, but the initial one that took it out of the Code of Ordinances, it was previously a portion of the code. It was removed from there for some legal purposes, because you don't want that sort of stuff in there, because then all of a sudden that could create a property right in somebody. And also to try and streamline the process for purchasing for the city and its departments. But the current purchasing policy does not include any reference to the Parks Department. For, again, an example, we'll just use Lee Summit, since their charter is basically the same. Lee Summit, I think it's the second section of their purchasing policy, just specifically kind of calls out the purchasing authority of the Parks Department and of the Parks and Recreation Administrator, I think is the title.
Go ahead.
So the way we've been working is, like I said, we swapped out city manager for park director. And where it said council, we swapped out park board. Why can't we continue that?
The city council could approve that tonight if they wanted to.
That's part of this resolution,
That's
isn't it?
part of the whole
That's part of
discussion.
this thing, is to allow you guys to continue to do that.
Yeah,
If we
I mean,
don't, if
I
we
would-
don't,
I would specifically note that Section 2 says that the city council hereby grants authority to the Parks and Recreation Board to approve purchases for park and recreation purposes in the same capacity as currently held by the city council. So it does put the Parks and Recreation Department explicitly, clearly, unequivocally for purchases at the city council's level.
Patrick, I think that the issue would be is for the Parks Director to have the up to $25,000 purchasing authority, it would need to be included in this as well.
Yeah, and if the city council would like to amend that section, we could add that as well.
I guess so.
Just to clarify and try to make it apples to apples, the city manager has $25,000 authority. Department heads have 15, is that correct?
That's the current level,
Okay,
yes.
so I would feel comfortable giving the Parks Director $15,000 authority, and then beyond that, the Parks Board has the authority to enter into contracts and purchases with the amended exception of non-budgeted over $25,000, but not emergency items.
I really wish the mayor would have looked at his phone, because I wrote it down and sent him a picture of what I wrote so that you could look at it.
I can send you a picture of what I wrote.
So-
Sorry, we get told not to look at our phones?
Well, but this one was, I wanted to make sure that it was good. Yeah, so the way that it is currently written is, it would be adding a new section 6, that the city council hereby waives any review authority it may have pursuant to section 9.4 of the charter for items, purchases, or contracts for services, items, or purchases included in the budget submitted by the Parks and Recreation Board or emergencies related to Parks and Recreation purposes. Period. This waiver shall not include items, purchases, or contracts for services, items, or purchases not included in the aforementioned budget. The one thing I wanted clarity on, I have it written down for you, Andrea.
Yeah, you're going to give it.
I have it written down for you, don't worry. The one point of clarification, which is why I tried to get it to you beforehand, was, did you want to include, because for purchases, under this, the city manager could approve Parks and Recreation purposes that are $25,000 or under.
Can I ask a question?
So did you want to include, because I know you had said, did you want to include that, like the $25,000 limit in some way, knowing that the city manager has the authority to approve $25,000 purchases?
Sorry.
Well, I'm going to sit here and say, when you do that, now all of a sudden we're violating the charter because now the city manager is supervising and controlling the budget of the park board, where inside the charter it
Councilmember
says.
Clark, that portion was directly removed from the charter. The city manager does have supervision authority over the park board and the Parks Department now.
Can I ask a question to intervene on that?
I can't find that in the charter anywhere.
It does not.
Well, no, the section that used to say that that the city manager does not have that authority was deleted, and then section 5.4 of the charter under city manager, this was the problem with the way that section was deleted. I understand what they meant when they deleted it, but they didn't do it right. Because the city manager, under 5.2B, shall direct and supervise the administration of all departments, officers, and agencies of the city except as otherwise provided by this charter or by law. Previously, his authority was limited by charter because it said that the city manager shall have no supervisory authority over the Parks Director or the Parks Department. Once that was deleted.
So you're saying that he can fire this?
No, he cannot, because that would be a personnel matter. That you guys still have authority to hire and fire the Parks Director.
And we also have authority for all the budgeted items too. All the expenditures is a park board. I mean, if I was sitting up there, I'd argue.
For the property tax at maximum. At maximum, that would be the extent, is for the property tax. The sales tax goes into a separate fund that is not, I think we currently end up transferring it over, like what was done for, I've reviewed your budgets from 2004 to today. Every budget has included a direct appropriation budget of the city council transferring the sales tax funds from the sales tax fund to the park board. But the charter does not explicitly require that because, again, it can't, because section 644.033.1 requires that all purchases made out of the Parks and Recreation sales tax fund be approved by an appropriation of the city council.
I have a question to his 15,000 and his 25,000, that it has, right now it says over 15, it has to go to Joe to 25. If it's 18,000, can I go in and sign for it since I'm on the park board?
No, because while you are on the park board, you guys are great group, but you can only act as a group. None of you have any individualized authority to approve a purchase. Just like no city council member could come in and approve an $18,000 purchase either. They need a majority vote.
Alex?
That point's so long gone, never mind.
Terry, or no, I'm sorry, you got Terry.
Okay. So I disagree with your interpretation there. And the reason I say that, a lot of reasons. Number one, let's back up a little bit. When you talked about Joe directing Brian, if you look in the document that the charter review commissioners sent to the council, it has intent in there of why they make changes. And you can go through and read all that. One of the things it says, we deleted the part about the city manager can no longer direct or cannot direct. We struck that. The reason was it was redundant, because before that it talks about the fact that only the parks can deal with the personnel. The city has no control over the personnel. So it didn't make sense to have that statement in there. And then it clearly stated in the intent that the change of command does not change. It's actually in that article. You can look in it and see. It says change of, it doesn't change.
And I really appreciate you guys including that intent, but under Missouri law, when we interpret codes or ordinances or statutes, we only go to legislative intent after about 6 other things have to happen. And it has to be ambiguous to the point where there's no clear rationale as to why it occurred. Instead, what we have to do is apply the plain and unambiguous language as used in the statute, charter, or code. And then the secondary interpretational framework is if you had something and you deleted it, you did it intentionally and it had to have meant something. And again, this is why really should have been clarified and that intent stated more in the actual body of the charter, because then all we fall back to is direct and supervise the administration of all departments, officers, and agencies of the city except as provided by this charter or by law. Prior to 2018, there were 2 different positions that were not subject to the city manager's authority. One was the chief of police. The second was the Parks and Recreation Board, because it was limited by the charter. Once those 2 things were removed, there was no more charter limitation on the city manager's supervisory authority.
Hence why we wanted a third-party attorney to interpret this, instead of having the city attorney interpret the charter.
Terry, that I find really offensive. Unfortunately, like, I am the attorney not only for the city council, but also for the park board. All I am doing is taking what is stated in your charter that you drafted and telling you what the case law would say is the final interpretation of it. I don't know how else to put it than that's what the law says. Now, again, 2018, you guys could add that intent in and not just put it in something that the voters, it was never in front of the voters at the ballot.
Chris?
Charter 17-41, powers and duties. the city manager shall not direct or supervise the Parks and Recreation Director.
That is in the Code of Ordinances, and that is not in line with the current charter and was actually, you guys already approved the amendment to it.
So it's wrong.
Yeah, it just hasn't been updated by Muni Code, a third-party publisher. You guys, if you remember, we did that ordinance because when the 2018 charter was approved, nobody went back into the code to make sure that the code tracked with the charter
But why was that taken out?
because it was no longer in the charter. It was directly removed by the charter.
Why was it removed from the charter?
Does
I
that,
explained
Chris,
that.
unfortunately, that doesn't matter when you interpret something.
So the minutes of the charter review from 18
The legislative
stating
intent.
why they took that out has no bearing on what we're talking about.
Under Missouri case law, you can't even go to legislative, and the Missouri legislature doesn't even keep it because that's how little courts care about what was actually said in the proceedings. So we have to use the plain and unambiguous language, and also, once something's been revised,
So
we
now
have to
we
look
can
at the
control?
revisions. You could, in 2018, you guys could put that provision right back in. But right now, it was deleted, and when something is deleted from a statute, code, or charter, it has to mean something. Not just that the city manager can now go to a meeting. They could
Well, I
have
mean,
gone to a
it's
meeting
stated in the
anyway.
minutes, yeah.
Well,
Why, is the city manager a liaison to the park board?
yeah, that's in the charter.
Right.
Okay. Chris, I don't think you're making the point you think you are.
I guess I'm not.
Hold on. Go ahead.
Okay, this will be two parts. The first is motion to amend Resolution 2025-067 to add Section 6, that the city council hereby waives any review authority it may have pursuant to Section 9.4 of the charter for items, purchases, or contracts for services, items, or purchases included in the budget submitted by the Parks and Recreation Board or emergencies related to Parks and Recreation purposes. This waiver shall not include items, purchases, or contracts for services, items, or purchases not included in the aforementioned budget.
We have a motion on the floor.
Second.
And a second.
Okay.
Any discussion on the motion to amend?
Yes. I'm
ahead.
struggling now again with the statement of removing my responsibility. Because it says, I'll remove the responsibility. And I have a little trouble with that when I'm sitting up here earlier and talking about how I'm not going to give up my responsibility because I realized I was, and so now I'm voting on something that says, oh, just give up your responsibility.
May I clarify? You are not giving up your responsibility. It is defining the timeline for you to review these things. You've got the park budget 90 days before it is folded into the city budget, right? That's when you look at all the budgeted items and expenses, okay?
But I also get, when I get the park board minutes, I also get who the contract's been awarded to and all that kind of stuff, which if I don't have a question about it, then, or if I have a question about it, the moment it's signed, I have no ability to monitor.
May I ask you, what power is delegated to you as a city council member to dictate which bids? You can
I'm
ask
not trying to
questions. Well, I'm
dictate
just
bids.
saying,
I
that's what
just wanna know
that
the
is a sticking
process.
point for you, is that you want to be involved in the bid process. Sure, you see the bids. If you have questions, there is a review process for you to say, hey, I have a question about this vendor. What are you hoping to accomplish?
I'm not trying to get into the valve. I'm just trying to look at the process. Brian, and that packet may be enough. I haven't analyzed my feeling about that. But the issue for me is not that they're going to go spend the money that we recommended that they could spend, that they pick the person that they want to wreck. It's just being able to look at it and go, okay, I understand what's going on.
Well, you still have if you and two buddies say, I don't like what's happening here.
Not according to your thing, because if they signed it, they come up
So
and
I
within
think
30 days it's signed,
I
I have no way of doing it.
I think what Councilmember Lawson is trying to point to is that instead of utilizing that review authority at the time of contracting, instead the city council utilize that review authority at the time of the budget. So instead of the city council, again, getting into the nitty-gritty of who they're approving to build the playground. Instead, the city council is reviewing and potentially setting aside the playground itself via the budget process. Am I correct?
That to me sounds like a more efficient use of our time and the Parks Board's time, so yes.
And you still have time. They're publishing their minutes. You can look at it. You can go to the park board meeting if you found something that you really didn't like.
Mayor,
And we haven't had that happen in years.
adding on to what Councilmember Bryant's saying is, you approve the city's budget, you have Public Works saying they're gonna spend $14 million on doing road work, but when you approve that, you don't know who you're approving until, we don't even see the bids. I mean, they do an open bid meeting in here and they come to us as a city council member and say, we're gonna take Superior Bowen here because they came in as the best bid. But do you really see the bids? I mean, do you go to the bid meetings and see what they're doing? No, I didn't either as a council member. So I guess I don't, here's what, you're gonna see the budget up front, like Councilmember Lawson's saying, you get 90 days to review it. If you don't like something that's gonna be in the budget, I mean, we're getting ready to do the Dryden Nature Reserve over the next couple of years. There's gonna be a lot of expenditures and you're gonna be able to see like, hey, we're gonna put in walking trails. You're gonna see that we're gonna try to do a lot of stuff out there. And that's all contractual that based on something you guys signed that we gotta spend at least, I think, $1.5 million. Because that's what Mr. Dryden said we had to do to get that land for free. So I mean, you're gonna see the budgeted items, but who's gonna be doing the project? Don't know. Just like when you approve the budget for the city, you also don't know who's gonna do the projects.
There's also,
But when they come
Hold on,
here.
hold on.
isn't there, in the bidding process, there's rules, I believe. If you have to get at least, and correct me, because 3 bids, and you always have to take the lowest bid unless there's not those people there or something like
Nope,
that?
lowest and best. Lowest and best. We don't
Okay.
take the lowest bid, we take the lowest and best.
All right, sorry. But Brett, just to add, there's rules about who we can take and not take in the bidding process, and we have to get 3 bids.
I'm not caring about I'm not caring about who applies, how it goes out. When the streets are ready to come in, they tell us, we're gonna award the contract to this, it's been bidded on, this is the best, blah, blah, blah. That's what they tell us. So I know at the end who's gonna be doing it. I didn't care about who did it at the beginning. I care that they followed the process, that they got what they were supposed to do, and they got the lowest and best. And it's going to go out and get done. That's what I'm talking about monitoring, is that I don't care about how you guys send it out and how long it takes to send out and who you're talking to. My issue is just knowing, okay, it's done. This person's going to do it. Okay. I just have information. Before I didn't pay attention.
Well,
And not
that's-
just parks.
That's in our minutes and also like, I mean.
I'm trying to wrap my hands around, is that enough for me?
I mean, what we do is no different than what you guys do already. I mean, we have a budget, and, I mean, I can't even think of anything of the last year that we didn't construct or build that wasn't in our budget.
All right. Any other questions on the motion to amend?
And also just to clarify, since you guys are making this motion to amend, the Exhibit A is already just in substantially the form. That automatic 30-day review provision will be removed from that section as well. So just so that it clarifies and everybody knows what's going on.
Go ahead, Shannon.
I just wanted to clarify that with this amendment, the city attorney seemed pretty concerned about some language in the charter with, it was any decisions. Does this address your concern with
Yes.
the any decisions?
This explicitly discusses it, waives, that's why I included that second sentence. It explicitly waives the city council's authority to review purchases or contracts for budgeted items that are non-emergency. Because the Parks and Recreation Board already has approval for contracts and purchases at the same level as the city council.
So we don't need to include the 25,000?
You do not.
Okay.
That's why Section 2 says that they have the authority of you guys, which is again, very similar to what Lee Summit did, except for we are, in addition to granting the authority, we are making sure that everything is clear, that you also are not going to utilize that review provision, thus making a contractor uncertain if they can even begin work, if they take a look at your guys' charter and see that any decision is up to review.
Alex?
I'll hold off for the moment.
Patty?
Just a clarification question, then in section 1, the 30 days essentially stays in, but is modified by the amendment if the amendment passes.
Yes, exactly.
All right.
Anybody else on the motion to amend? Go ahead, Brian.
On section 2, why is my purchasing authority being restricted? And I've been told twice in our one-on-ones that this process wouldn't change the way that we conduct business, and so far, the first 2 is changing the way that we're conducting business.
I think, so just button that one, vote on the current amendment, and then just so we stay right on topic. And if the city council wants to make a second
All right.
amendment, you can do
Mr.
that.
Mayor, I'd like to call the question.
Question has been called.
Second.
I don't know what that means.
They need to vote on the amendment beforehand.
We vote on that? That roll call or? Question on the floor is called for question. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
Now,
The
would be
motion as amended is on the floor.
the motion to amend is now up for vote with no further discussion.
Do you want a roll call for that one?
Yes.
Mayor Larkey?
Yes.
Councilmember Johnson?
No.
Ryan?
Aye.
White?
Aye.
Richardson?
Aye.
McCallum?
Aye.
Lawson?
Aye.
Thompson?
No.
Davidson?
Yes.
That passes.
Motion passes. The motion as amended is on the floor.
No, we haven't had a motion on the floor yet for the resolution.
Oh, we have. That's how we've been talking for the last hour and a half.
Yeah, it was made.
Yeah, technically, I believe I presented
Yeah,
it.
he
and-
made it and he seconded it. That's
Yeah.
why we've only been able to been talking for the last hour and a half.
I apologize. No, I apologize. I have that.
So now we are on the motion as amended. Go ahead.
Okay, so I agree. Brian, let's clarify section 2. My interpretation is that the Parks Board has spending authority for budgeted items, obviously. And then your individual authority would mirror either the city managers or other department heads. Is that what we're clarifying?
So as written, it mirrors department heads, because that's just what the purchasing policy says. And so the purchasing policy is the controlling document unless the city council decides to change it via this resolution for the parks director.
Okay, Brian, do you have concerns about that?
So up to this point, I've had up to 25,000, and I don't want to speak for the park board, but I don't think they have issues with that. I mean, Terry, do you have any comment on that?
No, you're allowed up to 25,000.
Okay,
So I'm just asking the question.
Yeah.
Since I was told that this process should not change, the intent isn't to change the way that we conduct business. And obviously, with the way that this is being presented, it's changing the way that we're conducting some of our business.
that's true. This
So I'm
would-
just asking.
No, that's fine. So this would bring you in line with other department heads in terms of your spending authority. And the procurement document, is that what we're aligning with? Okay. Yes, that is a change. That's something for us to discuss. Let's keep on that, because I want to come back to section 3 eventually.
Anybody else on the motion as amended?
I mean, so,
Go ahead.
wait, the motion, so you're just saying motion is amended because we already made one amendment, correct?
We
Okay.
are on the motion
So-
as amended.
The motion on the floor is the motion to approve Resolution 2025
067.
067 as amended.
As amended. Sorry, I just didn't say the number.
Yeah, okay,
go
I'm
ahead.
with you. So I guess I'll go back to, I understood that we were not changing things. This would be something I would agree if we have operated that, the park director has had the same authority, then we should probably make another amendment potentially. But again, I would go back to, well, I'm just gonna stick to, yeah, I'll make that amendment, Mr. Attorney.
A motion to amend Resolution 2025-67 as amended by inserting into Section 2 after City Council and, I'll go slow because I don't have this one written down yet, and the Parks and Recreation Director shall, and the Parks and Recreation Director to approve purchases for Parks and Recreation purposes in the same capacity as currently held by the city manager.
Yes, I would like to make that motion.
And then revising no other sections of Section 2, so then it would.
Of what he just said.
So also, just to note, like the way that we tried to word this Section 2 is to also make it so that if you guys ever change the purchasing policy, then this is automatically changed as well. We don't have to keep coming back each time and having two documents that are floating, and it's like, well, oh, we forgot to amend that resolution this time, which means that, oh no,
Would it,
Parks Director only has this, and
would it be easier to change the procurement document instead of making this amendment?
so I actually think that what we could possibly do is we do, sometimes bring up the purchasing policy as a, just kind of standalone thing for the city council to look at. I think the next time that we do that, we should probably include just kind of adding those things in.
Since this is that's adopted via resolution, and since this is being adopted via resolution as well, I'm taking this, and correct me if I'm wrong, Patrick, I'm taking this as we can go ahead and take this and include this into our procurement policy because you guys are already voting on these policies.
Yes, exactly. And then whenever it would come back up, it would already have
Already
that
be
stuff
in there.
included, and you guys could discuss it, change it.
Just real quick, because this is the way my brain's thinking right now, I just want to make sure, from that standpoint of that question, should it instead say per the procurement policy, what we
No,
decide there?
because no, I don't want it, that's why we're saying just at the same capacity as.
Okay.
So that we're not referencing that document. Instead, it's just whatever the capacity that the city council has to approve a purchase, the park board has the authority to do the same. Whatever amount that that Joe has to approve a purchase, Brian has the same.
Sure, okay.
I'll second that motion.
So we have a motion and a second on the motion to amend the motion as amended on the floor.
This is going to get real complicated.
Yeah. Any other questions?
I have a question. Is this on?
Yes, or it is now, I guess.
Okay. So I think everyone will agree that, we've been around the block and we keep going around the block. And I guess the question is, at the end of the day, is it kind of feels like you're amending the charter, which only the citizens of this town can do.
We are not amending the charter. We are.
Go ahead.
I would just note again that the one other city in our area that has a charter that is exactly the same as this specifically has called out the authority of the Parks and Recreation Board and the Parks and Recreation Administrator in their purchasing policy already. Your guys's does not include that. So instead of bringing that document up and amending it for Parks and Recreation purposes, because we had other issues outside of just purchasing with like the parks property thing, Instead, just include it in one so that we can get all these issues done, knocked out, and moved on in the best way we can, so that then we can align ourselves more with what other similarly situated cities are doing with these same charter provisions.
To put that into something I can understand, am I correct to say that what you were saying is that we are clarifying the charter we're not changing the charter, we're clarifying it?
Exactly, and again, you are doing it in the not the exact same way, but towards the exact same way that Lee Summit already has done it since 1994, when they adopted their charter with the exact same provisions that are in your guys' charter. It's kind of, you guys have amended them, so now they're a little different, but functionally, they're still pretty much the same.
So what you're saying is the charter is open for.
Again, you're not amending it, but the charter is open for
But
clarification.
we go back to that every time, yeah.
Well, aren't we really clarifying how the procurement policy is going to be applied to the Parks Board? That's what we're really doing. It has not, it
Yes.
just it comports with the language of the charter. We are simply aligning the procurement policy to what we've stated here today.
Yes, especially with these first two sections and then that new section 6 with the resolution as amended.
Anybody else? Hearing none, Andrea?
Go ahead, yes. Councilmember Pryan?
Aye.
Davidson?
Yes.
Thompson? Yes. White?
Aye.
Johnson?
Aye.
McCallum?
Aye.
Lawson?
Aye.
Mayor Larkey?
Aye.
Richardson?
Aye.
Motion passes.
Motion passes. So,
The motion is twice amended.
hold on, all right. Or we'll go that way. Now we're on the motion as twice amended. Go ahead.
Okay, section 3, let's clarify a couple things perhaps. The first is, we currently do not have any property that is formally designated as city parkland, correct?
That's my understanding, yes.
Okay, so we're going to have to hammer that out at some
Yes.
point. My second question of this is specifically with the Westover proposal. This says application of either rezoning or plating or redevelopment. At what point was that project applied to either be rezoned, platted, or redeveloped?
The Westover project? Don't hold me to this. February, maybe?
Okay,
When we
so
received application, formal application?
in that exact example then, in February, it would have started, if this was in effect, in February would have started a 45-day window for the park board to be made aware of the interest in the land and to give their recommendation to the council. Okay, park board, how does that land with you? We figure out how we identify parkland and then a 45-day window from those jumping off points?
I remember we had a meeting, I don't know when it was, but I know, actually, Joe came to one of our park board meetings, and identifying the land is gonna come up in another resolution.
Yes.
Correct. So, I mean, right now, the only way I would identify land is how it's zoned. But I think having some type of terminology in there that we're gonna follow, because currently the charter says that they must meet and confer with us as a park board once parkland has been designated for sale or proposed land change.
I'll just jump in. But so the problem with the way the charter currently reads is the charter also uses that same designated as parkland kind of phrase. And so since we have nothing designated as parkland, it's also unclear what the charter applies to as well. So I think really, like, this step is in the clarification, but this is only the first step in this clarification.
We can't touch that till 2028. Clarifying what is formally
No,
designated as parkland.
No, you guys, that would be
There's gonna
that
be a-
second resolution that,
That would be, we can designate parkland at some point in time. That doesn't change the charter, it just simply sets out, this is what we all agree should be parkland.
which is then subject to this whole process. Because obviously other city-owned property, if you guys wanted to sell City Hall,
So,
wouldn't be-
so just to clarify, in case this was missed or forgotten or whatever, and Mr. City Manager, please speak up if I misspeak here, but the intent is to bring forward another resolution that is going to specifically identify the parcel of land that are park within our city, so there's never a question as to what is parkland as soon as that comes up.
Yeah, because like I was saying, I think the only way to determine what is actually considered a parkland is based on zoning. And when it says it's park or, there's another verbiage inside of that, but that's the only thing we have right now that basically would say this is park land. It's all owned by the citizens of the city of Belton, so.
So that can of worms is,
I will say
we are
that-
in charge of zoning.
So that's why that's what the problem with identifying it via zoning. That's why it's honestly the best identification method is in the document that the city gained the property in. So for example, with the Dryden land, that quitclaim deed specifically says that that property can only be used for parks and recreation purpose. Or no, actually, I think it's even, is it even more narrow to just Arboretum? I forgot, but it limits it. And that's not something, the city council cannot just do away with the deed restriction via public notice, public hearing, planning commission recommendation, 2 votes. The only way to do away with a deed restriction would be if the city council decided to condemn that deed restriction out, which is a significantly more arduous process. So just like as Councilmember Lawson was hitting at, I think for right now, utilizing zoning is okay, but realistically, legally, the only true way to designate something as parkland until the city council acts is via the quitclaim deed or the warranty deed or the donation by which the city received the property. Because that's not something that the city council has the authority to change. And I know you guys have other properties in town it is very common for park property to include a deed restriction that it can only be used for park purposes. One, because usually if you think about it, like people don't usually just give away land, right? When they do, they want to give it away for a good public purpose typically. And also by doing that, it means they can take it as a tax deduction, so.
All right.
But I think having something in there that's spelled out in a time frame, I, as a park board member, I can't speak for all 9 of them, or 8 others, but I think having a time frame in there definitely would be beneficial.
So I,
Oh, sorry, you got to speak up when I'm,
yeah, that's right.
Go ahead.
So I appreciate the purpose behind the 45-day window. And I understand how important that might be. I also know that we're talking about real property and land, and 45 days in the real estate market is really tricky. So I think you said something about, it seems like if we can front load time rather than load time at the back end, so maybe the way you said it was if, there was an intention to do something other with parkland, that they give us time to review that intention, not once they already have a plan in place, right? Because if they've got something they want to do with, like they've already got a buyer or they've already got some development deal or something like that, then the timeline becomes much more critical in getting that accomplished. But I don't know how that can be worded. I'm just saying maybe there's a way to front load time rather than at the back end for real estate market purposes.
Yeah, Joe and I talked about this a lot, and the problem is if once we try and front load it, it's what is the front load mechanism? Like, if a developer just calls and goes, hey, there's some property over here that I think I might want to take a look at developing at some point. Does that trigger it? Because 90% of the time the city hears from developers, it's just like.
And this was my
Kicking
big
tires.
argument, which was, in general, I'm not talking about this with parks, with anything, as Mr. Clark and I have spoke about this before. The amount of ideas pitched to the city that are just sometimes absurd.
Pie in the sky.
Are so pie in the sky is just ridiculous. So I don't know how, I agree that I have no idea how we would possibly front load because the things that come forward are.
That's why the term application was utilized, because an application requires like actually filling out a document, actually I don't know what your guys' rezoning fee is. I'm sure it's not crazy high, but it still requires actual full steps and other documents to be prepared and provided to the city so that it's more of a, okay, this is actually something that needs the park board to jump in on, not just some random developer gave Mike Iki a call and said, hey, I'd love to build, the new Royal Stadium at Memorial Park. Honestly, that's probably not even the craziest thing that's been pitched to Mike.
But that is actually a really good example.
So what's the actual time frame from application before it goes to planning and zoning? I mean, it could be fast-tracked.
That's why we have the 45 days, because we've essentially got a 45-day process built into planning and zoning. If everything goes quick and without issue, and 45 days is the quickest they could potentially get that done. And
Because that includes the DRC meeting, that includes the actual public notification period.
Public hearings,
That includes that, the application is the first thing in the development process, and from application to potential, honestly, just first reading by the city council, I don't even think it's second reading, is 45 days.
Yeah, but the problem gets into is I think park boards should be informed a lot sooner if it's park land before it ever goes to planning and zoning, in my opinion.
Well, so it would, I mean, you would receive, that's why it says the community development director will provide you with the notice, and then you have 45 days from then. So you guys would receive notice before it went to the planning commission. And you guys could potentially have your meeting before it went to the planning commission, and also would have the ability to come to the planning commission and say, hey, the park board met and discussed this, and
just to make sure I'm understanding, it's specifically because what you're getting at is the application comes in obviously before anything ever comes before planning commission.
yes, because without the application, we don't start anything. It takes a formal application for the development process to actually start rolling.
As is, this feels like an improvement from having nothing, so.
And I would also remind council, this is a resolution. We can't amend it. So if it turns out,
If it turns out it needs to be 41 and a half days instead.
like we can bring it back, we can make those sort of revisions.
Cool, okay. I am pleased with the amended resolution.
Motion is twice amended.
That.
Go ahead.
I make a recommendation, we don't re-amend.
It's up to you guys. Go ahead.
I'm coming back full circle again. Here it is, the second time, I guess. I'll look at parks and Mr. Wellborn or any particular member of parks, are you in approval here of this, resolution as is?
Go ahead, Terry.
Yeah, so I want to make sure we don't lose sight of real property in the charter. In that section of 9.2C, it seems like this resolution is kind of abandoning the last sentence in there, which means the public has abandoned the property, or the property has become unusable, unsuitable, or inadequate for parks and recreation purposes. I think those three things are vital as to whether you sell off parkland or not, because what I'm concerned about, I think there's a lot of parkland that wasn't designated ahead of time that this was going to be always and forever parkland.
So that provision is still there. We're
is?
not amending the charter. All we're doing is clarifying when the time for the city council or the city or the community development department to make notification to the park board that park property is being considered for redevelopment or development as non-park land, when that occurs, and then when the recommendation needs to be back for the city council. And obviously, regardless of if the recommendation is a yes or a no or whatever, the property to be sold would still have to, the disposition would have to be consistent with the original grant, or the public use has been abandoned, or the property has become unsuitable or inadequate for parks and recreation purposes. At the end of the day, that still needs to be met. All this resolution does is clarify when the park board needs to be made aware of the potential for parkland to become part of that kind of development process.
So this is strictly a timing issue, and obviously the sooner the better. I get it.
Might I add, Mr. Mayor?
Go ahead.
That this is essentially codifying a minimum as a process, right? Saying, okay, we get an application, we're going, the community development department's then at that point required to give them, the Parks Department notice of what's going on, and then they get a chance to have their meeting and make a recommendation. But that's not, that's a minimum. We have, we've learned a lot in the last couple of years, and one of those things is, we're including parks in our development meetings that we have on potential projects before applications are even made. So the intention is to essentially fold parks in on the backside before there's even an application made, so that they can have a chance to vet it, discuss with parks, bring out, issues that could be at stake. And so just because it's not codified doesn't mean we haven't already started those processes and those meetings are taking place.
And that's a really good point. This is something I said kind of in the beginning of all these discussions, I believe, was that I really like about planning and zoning is that we have a very clear, trigger for things, right? We have actually, it looks like an Excel spreadsheet, but whatever. We have a matrix out there that provides certain things happen certain times, whatever. So, hopefully, we will, not have to rely on that timing, but we might, from time to time. And my only ask there is, let's not make sure we forget, just because we may have already included that people may, Brian, I'm not intentionally picking on you. I'm just saying, because you're probably the most likely person to attend said meetings that Mr. Warren is referring to. And what I'm getting at here is that let's not forget, just because, our Parks Director already knows that we don't still need to make that notification official. That's what I'm trying to get at.
I would note that the city's community development department, due to all the notifications that are required to be sent out by law for all types of development for public hearings, is probably the city department that is the most comfortable and the most aware of when they need to send a notice to somebody to receive it. And I'd also say that your current community development director is incredibly detail-oriented. So once we add this as a little checkbox on his flow sheet that he has, it won't be.
Touche. I was not trying to throw shade in any direction there. I just wanted to make sure
I also wanted the public to know, it's like, when it comes to notices, community development probably does the most notices of any department in the city. So this is something that falls really well within their existing bailiwick, which is why, it says this city's community development department, not the city manager. It's the city's community development department, the department that's most responsible for notices for development, knows to make another one.
All right. Any other discussion on the motion as twice amended?
You have a question, Mr. Mayor?
Go ahead.
Sure. Just a question. What's the timeline for actually designating the parkland? I've heard it brought up. There's a resolution. Is it?
Yeah, it's going to be a resolution, but like city manager said, the police station, the fire station, and High Blue are all on one parcel.
Okay.
So we've got a survey to split them out.
So it's kind of dependent on that. Okay.
That's what we're waiting on.
We're working on the formal processes to ensure that we can get a legal description included as part of our resolution that we bring forth. So that way there's no, we're trying to eliminate the vagueness of any of it. We're trying to make it as clear as possible.
Instead of 3 different zoning maps and,
Right.
Yeah. Okay.
Would it be fair to say, if we don't have that resolution in place by January 1st, that we ask, the park board to remind us, or I don't know, something?
Yeah.
That's kind of my next question.
We've started this process, and it was going to take a couple of months, and we're about a month into that. So we expect September to have at least our survey work back which can, I think it's reasonable to expect us to have something by October or November at the very latest.
So I doubt, I'm usually not one to forget, but if for some reason, Park Board, you have not seen that come forward, please remind us.
I'll take responsibility.
I
to
would
make
also
sure that
note, I
comes
wouldn't want to
forth.
put a timeline in just because we are at the mercy of the surveyors.
Hence why I said reminder.
So you never know when a surveyor's like, never mind, I got a big development that's going to pay me way more than you guys.
Go ahead.
To that end, on this section 3, where it says the property either formally designated city parkland, blah, blah, blah. So do we need to take that formally designated parkland out? And is it just like property designated as city parkland versus either formally?
We took the either out as a Scrivener's
Yeah,
error.
we took either out. The reason why formally designated is in there is just because we never want, again, for there to be a question on what is parkland. All parkland in the city, hopefully, by the end of this year, will be formally designated by the city council by a resolution saying, this is hereby formally designated. Because I think, kind of going back to Westover, it was, well, yeah, it's like, it's one of those things where it's like, we're never going, the purpose for this was to make sure we never had a question again when it came to the property situation.
Anybody else on the motion as twice amended?
So I know this is our resolution.
You're out of questions. Go ahead. Go ahead.
I know this is our resolution. Is there, I also know it was given to parks, at some point in the past, brought up for a park board meeting. Do they have any, what I'm trying to get at is, do we want to have them have a vote on it? And that way we know that they're comfortable with what is here before we vote on it? Or am I the only one that feels that way, or? I haven't asked it in the way in which I
City
just
Attorney?
did.
I would say you could have the park board do a recommendation. I would also note, though, that the resolution as twice amended was very much drafted in a collaborative process now,
very true.
following these 2 hours. What the park board received the last time was, it was reviewed by me, but then following your guys' kind of the last meeting where this was presented and the city council had a ton of questions about it, I just probably overly lawyered it a little bit, to be completely honest, just to make sure we never had an issue ever again, hopefully. So what you have here, like, I don't know how we go deeper.
I'll shut up.
Anybody else on the motion as twice amended? Anybody else? Terry, anything? All right, Andrea. What? Oh,
Sorry, I cut out there. No, I really don't have any other comment other than the fact that I still stand behind especially as a commissioner on the charter, review, that, I still stick by the charter that's written. And, you guys make the decision you need to make, but, it clearly states to me that all decision-making authority shall remain with the board. But, it's much better now than what it was when we started this meeting. So, thank you.
anybody else? Hearing none. Andrea?
Councilmember Pryan,
Aye.
Davidson,
Yes.
Thompson,
Yes.
White,
Yes.
Johnson,
No.
McCallum,
Aye.
Lawson,
Aye.
Mayor Larky,
Yes.
Richardson.
Aye.
Motion passes.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
We have a motion and a
whoa,
second. What?
Are we having an executive session?
Yeah, but it's a totally separate meeting.
Okay, yeah, but so we adjourn, okay,
Yeah.
never mind.
We have a motion and a second to adjourn. Any discussion? Hearing none, roll call. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? We stand adjourned.